Welcome back to Talking Bama with Big C. This is our second show of the season. I'm your host, Colin Big C McGuire. I was a student manager on Coach Bryant's last two national championship teams, the 1978-79 teams. This past Saturday, Alabama traveled over to Atlanta to play in the Georgia Dome versus West Virginia. They're playing against their hurry-up offense. And Alabama won, which that's the main thing. But they still looked like they had trouble with the hurry-up offense, and the defense sort of had a little problem with it, trying to adjust to it. Also, the linebacking play for Alabama with two inexperienced linebackers, you could tell they looked like they were confused, but it seemed like they got themselves together later on in the game. From a defensive standpoint, one thing they did do positive, even though they drove the ball on them, when they got in the red zone, talking about West Virginia, they was only able to score a touchdown. What they got to do is go back to the drawing board, work on the defense, improve on the offense, and what the deal is, they got Florida Atlantic coming up. Lake Sims, he did a great job, but also I believe you'll see Jacob Coker, the transfer from Florida State, will be able to play. And Coach Saban said after the game, the competition at quarterback is still on, despite the fact that Blake Sims did have a great day, had over 250 yards passing. His only negative was throwing an interception. But and the offense really played well. They were really conservative. I think part of the deal was they wanted to make sure that West Virginia didn't have the ball that much. When you play a hurry-up type offense, you need to score points and keep the ball away from them. That might be your best defense. And if you look at it this way, if a kickoff return was not returned, Alabama only gave up 16 points on defense. If your team can average giving up 16 points or less, the odds of you winning are very, very good. I have a trivia question for you guys to think about for the rest of the show, and the question is, name 3 Alabama assistant football coaches who ended up winning national championships as head coaches. Talk about the history of the Alabama-Florida Atlantic Series, which is a very short one, only one game, which was played on September 22nd, 2012, just a short 2 years ago. Highlights from that game are A.J. McCarron threw 3 touchdown passes. The first one he threw was an 85-yarder to Kenny Bell with 1:42 gone off the clock, so with a little over 13 minutes left in the game, in the quarter, Alabama was up 7-0. The touchdown pass that McCarron threw to Bell, 85 yards, is the 5th longest touchdown pass in Alabama football history. Also, Eddie Lacy gained 160 yards rushing, and Kenyon Drake scored the last touchdown. T.J. Yeldon, a freshman, also gained 63 yards on 10 carries. But the big thing was the defense, and they almost had a 3rd shutout in a row. They had a shutout going for 192 minutes, and they scored a little over 2 minutes left in the game. We're up against the break. When we come back, I recently interviewed Coach Howard Snellenberger, who was an assistant coach at Alabama from 1961 to 65. Later on was the head coach at the University of Miami, Oklahoma, and Florida Atlantic. Coach Snellenberger was the man that was the first coach, and he was the one that started the program at Florida Atlantic, so we got all kind of good information from him about his history with Alabama and Miami and Florida Atlantic. We'll be back after these messages.
At the 36-yard line. Jarvis Hall awfully close. Kemp will wave and miss. Strikeout, getting over. The Royal team leaves the man at third.
Right now we got us a special guest on the show here. We got Coach Howard Snellenberger, he played for Coach Bryant in Blanton Collier at Kentucky, and then he coached at Kentucky under Coach Collier, then coached at Alabama, and then went to the pros, and then ended up coaching down at Miami, made a name for himself there, then went to Oklahoma, and then started the program down at Florida Atlantic, and we're going to talk to him about his career, and also we're going to mention at the very end of the interview a book that he's got coming out about his career. But right now, Coach, welcome to the show. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. Have we got a good connection?
Yes, sir. I can hear you well. I was looking up something the other day about you, and I thought it was very interesting. Won't you tell the story about how you got recruited by Coach Bryant, because he didn't give up on getting you.
No, he sure didn't. He was late getting in on me. I'd already committed to 2 different people. When he found that out, he decided that I must be able to play because of the way he recruited me. You talking about
the governor and
coming in there to see Mom and Dad?
Yeah, that's what I want. I want them to hear that. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, well, it was very interesting because I'd already committed to Miami, and way back in the summer they invited us down, and we spent a couple of days down there scrimmaging, and offered me, but not my friend that went with me, a scholarship, but eventually did, and I committed to them, and then went back up to Louisville, and then Bernie Crimmins up to Louisville, up at the University of Indiana, where I'm from, where I was born, came down to recruit me, and I committed to him because I've been so long since I had talked to Florida, Miami. And then it was after that Coach Bryant found out that I was going up there, so he asked Mom and Dad he could come in and talk to them, and they said, well, of course, you're a very famous man, we can't turn you down. So he came, but he brought the governor with him, Governor Weatherby. That was 2 powerful men walking into that 2-room house we lived in, and started talking in the living room. And wasn't long, he asked Dad to go out in the kitchen. They're back there about 10 minutes, and he comes out, and Dad said, well, it sounds like they got a good thing down there, and they really want you. And it wouldn't be, God would forgive you if you would decide to go to Kentucky. But my mom chimed in and said, well, no, hell, he can't break his word. So Brian left. A couple of weeks later, he calls back and asks if he could come again. And this time he brings the Archbishop of the Diocese of Louisville, Kentucky, Archbishop Flourish. They went through the same thing, took Mom to the kitchen, and wasn't long she comes out and said, God would prevail. It would be all right with him. So, but that was how he was. He was relentless, and he brought the powers to be, in addition to him, to talk to the parents.
I'm pretty sure you learned a lesson from that for later on in your career.
I learned a great lesson from that. The only difference was the NCAA had put these rules in back when I was in Miami, that you had only people who could talk to kids in their home were the 9 coaches that were on the field. You can't bring in the President of the United States, or you can't bring in the sheriff or anybody else.
Oh, yeah. All right, Coach, you coached at Alabama from 1961 to 65, and Alabama won 3 national championships during that time. How was it like being there at that time, and how different was college football back then?
Brian had only been there 4 years, and he had thought the University of Alabama was awful. I don't think they won more than 2 games in any one of those 3 years before he got there. So it took him a while. I got there in 61. They had got to be a very good football team. We went on that year to be the best defensive football team I've ever heard of. I think we had an average of 2 points a game for the 11 games we played, and went undefeated. So that 5 years I had there was what a great teaching experience that was for me to learn from the Grand Master, Paul Bryant, and his staff. To have quarterbacks that we had in a row there after Trammell, great football player and average quarterback, but a great field general, was
ask you a quick question about Joe Namath. You're the one that got him down there. Can you tell us a real quick story about how the recruitment of Namath went?
Well, that's been highly documented. People now have heard that story that I've been telling, and Joe's been telling me his book. I just was having to be the right guy at the right time, because early before that 61 season, when I first got down there, going into that season, we had already started practice when we got the word that Joe Namath couldn't get into school at Maryland. Brian remembered that he brought in about 140 players, and one of which was Frank Namath from Beaver Falls. And we went to Millersburg and endured that toughest practice session that any group of football players could ever go through. In the 4-year period I was there, in that summer practicing in Millersburg, Kentucky, about 40 miles from Lexington, 140 went in there, and only 40 went to Lexington. But anyway, he remembered that he was in that crowd. He picked me out to go up there and try to get Joe Namath out of Beaver Falls, and before anybody found out that he was not already up in Maryland practicing football. So I got some money out of Corny Lashley, was a wad of bills that he pulled out of his lower drawer in his desk. And I got up there and thought I'd be up there 3 days. I was getting back. I was up there 10 days, ran out of money, and before I got him on a plane to come back to Tuscaloosa. And when he got there, Brian took him up to the tower, spent about 5 minutes with him, hollered at us down through his bullhorn that I think the boys going to come with us. The only thing we had to do next was to get him to fly back to Beaver Falls and pay his way back to school, because the rule book says that you can't pay for a player coming in to take up residency in a college town.
When you left Alabama, you coached in the pros with the Rams, the Dolphins, and then you were the head coach at Baltimore, and then went back to the Dolphins, and then you were hired at Miami. How down was that program when you took it over in 1979?
They were ready to put the tombstone on the program. They were ready to bury it. I took the job reluctantly because it had 6 coaches and 7 athletic directors in 13 years. And I had only one winning season in 13 years. I don't know how I had the confidence and courage to take the job. I knew I got a $25,000 raise. What the University of Miami had, best football players in the country, and a lot of 250 kids signed Division I scholarships to play football coming out of South Florida. And if we could just get about 17 or 18 of them, we would have enough to win. If we could do it over a period of time, we could have a chance to be really good. And even though they thought the Orange Bowl was a terrible place to play because it had held 65,000, and we couldn't get more than 20,000 to come to watch us play. And then they also thought their schedule was too tough. Of course, it's too tough if you're not good, but if you're good, it's perfect. So we were able to put all those factors together and to develop a pretty fine football team.
I know you went 5-6, then 9-3, then 9-2, 7-4, and then the big game against Nebraska, and you led them to the promised land, to a national championship, and they've won several after you left there. But with you being associated with 3 national championship teams at Alabama, obviously that sort of helped you learn how to get there to win a national championship down at Miami.
There's no question. The time I spent with Paul Bryant, and the time I spent with Paul Bryant was utmost important to me being able to be successful. But when a person has 5 coaches that you have worked for, and all 5 of them are Hall of Famers, Paul Bryant, Don Shula, Black Collier, George Allen, and my high school coach Paulie Miller, all Hall of Famers, that gave me a pretty good fountain to draw from to be able to be successful coaching.
After Miami, you had that job offer with the USFL that didn't work out. Then you went to your hometown, Louisville, and then You went to Oklahoma, and then after that, you were out of football for a while, and then all of a sudden, Florida Atlantic came calling to you. How did that all come about? And then I think it's real interesting in how you got there.
Yeah, well, it was by default. I left Oklahoma as a miserable situation we had out there, and retired from football. And I went to college or school to get my Series 7 exam complete so I could be a stocks and bonds broker. And that's what I was doing when the president of Florida Atlantic, Tony Castanese, came to talk with me, tell me about how he wants to start a new football team in Boca Raton, Florida, and he felt that I would be the right guy to do that. Well, I didn't have to move out of my house, and I had been with the Dolphins and the Hurricanes here in South Florida, so I had a pretty good reputation. And so after Beverly and I had prayed over it for a long time, I decided to do it. And I decided to do it because I looked at Boca Raton, Florida, as a better place to start a football team than Coral Gables, Florida, or Tuscaloosa, Alabama, for that matter, or South Bend, Indiana. Here we got a school that's 1.8 miles from the ocean. We're in a town that has the best financial situation. We've got more education here. We've got subtropical climate. We've got everything going for us. And, so I decided to take the job, and all those things that I thought we could do, like we did in Miami, we have done. I had to promise Beverly that I would win the national championship in my lifetime. And in the eighth year of our existence, we were on the road to getting to the national championship. Won our conference twice, won the bowls twice, won them both, and a year or so later, we built a 30,000-seat stadium, expandable to 65. So we were close to winning the national championship. I'm still working in Florida Atlantic as an ambassador at large. I'm still working with the football team, raising money and talking it up and selling tickets. I could fulfill that promise to Beverly simply by Charlie Portridge, our new head coach, and the team win the national championship in the next several years. I'll count that as mine.
Oh, that would be a interesting story. That would be a great. That would top it off after what you've done with what you've done. Speaking of that, you got a book coming out. What's the name of your book, and who'd you collaborate with to do this?
Yes, well, the book is already out. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble, and on my website. You can buy it now. You get a delivery in about 3 weeks. We've been on Amazon for about 6 weeks. So we're ready to start our tours. And the book's name is The Passing of the Torch. The author, the guy that writes the words of the writes on paper the words that I've said to him, is Ron Smith. We're going to be in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham the weekend that they have the homecoming for the 1964 national championship team.
Well, Coach, I really enjoyed talking to you, and it's really been fun talking to you. Let's dig into Alabama's opponent, Florida Atlantic. They opened the season against Nebraska, and then this week they play in Alabama. You're talking about murderer's row on the schedule, that is. From a money standpoint, it's a great idea. From a scheduling standpoint, it is not a good idea. From a physical and mental standpoint, how they got beat on last week, and then you're going to turn around and play Alabama in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, especially after Alabama did not play that well against West Virginia. You know Coach Dick Saban's going to have them ready and be loaded for bear. Alabama's rushing offense is 23rd in the country versus Florida Atlantic's rushing defense, which is 120, last in the NCAA. Alabama's rushing defense is number 10 versus Florida Atlantic's rushing offense, which is rated number 97 statistically. And turnover margin, this is where Florida Atlantic has Alabama beat, or is better at right now. Florida Atlantic is tied for 42nd with 0.00 margin, while Alabama's number 87 at -1. So, but anyway, I'm going to make my prediction for Alabama. Alabama will win 56-10, and Jacob Coker will get a lot of actions because they're still having a quarterback competition at Alabama. So the fans and the coaches will get a better idea how the quarterback situation at Alabama will look after this game. As you remember earlier in the show, I asked a trivia question. The trivia question is this: name 3 former Alabama assistant football coaches who ended up winning national championships as head coaches. The answer is Danny Ford, 1981, Clemson; Howard Snellenberger, 1983, Miami; and Gene Stallings, 1992, Alabama. We're at the end of the show here, and I want to thank the following people for this show. Coach Howard Snellenberger is our guest, who was very gracious and entertaining. Brad Bradford, fans that are watching the show now, and our future fans. I also want to let you know about, I have a show called Talking Sports with Big C, Monday through Friday. All you got to do is go to www.JockJive.com. It's on from 7 to 8 a.m. live, Monday through Friday. Also, you can go to that website after 8 a.m. Central Time and hear it anytime you want to. But also remember, we'll be back next week for Alabama Southern Miss. This is Colin Big C McGuire talking Bama with Big C. Roll Tide Roll!